Hello, everyone, and welcome to True Blue Woman. Thank you for joining me. If you're joining me for the first time, my name is Marjorie James. And yes, joining me today is amazing Gregg Gonzales. And no, Gregg Gonzales, of course, is not a lady. That's why it's true blue woman. However, as women, we are surrounded by our brothers, we're surrounded by our friends, we're surrounded by our partners, husbands, fiancés who are male. And June being the men's mental health awareness month. So I have brought in Gregg so that we can be able to unpack a few things which are surrounding men's mental health. There's a lot of stigma around it that men should not talk about things which are bothering them, even if they are cooking in that pot, even if things are so like, gone completely off the tangent. Men are like sort of society has made them think and believe that they should not talk about things. So today we're going to pack a couple of things here and there. We're going to dive into the even questions that people do not ask. And if you have any questions as we're going along the line, you have any things that you'd like us to discuss as we're going on, please do let us know. And now I'm going to bring in my guest, Gregg, and he'll introduce himself to us. Gregg, are you there with me?
I am.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let's see. Right. Mhm.
It looks like I can't start the video. Oh, here we go.
Okay, fantastic.
There
There
we
you
are.
are. Yeah. Good afternoon, all the way in Denver, Colorado. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming on. It is a pleasure. It is an honor for you have taken your time to come on and be on this amazing show, I have to say, with us. So please introduce yourself to the people who are probably watching you for the first time. Let us know about Gregg.
Sure. Well, thank you, Marjorie, for having me on. And hello, everybody. As she said, my name is Gregg Gonzales. I am based in Denver, Colorado. And I currently wear two different hats as it relates to what I do when people ask me. I say which hat I'm wearing. It just kind of depends on the day. I am the founder of the Speakeasy Method, which is a story production company. It's my own. And for lack of a better word, I help people who want to write books and want to express themselves in any sort of way through storytelling, whether it's to write a book, get on stage to do a TED Talk, maybe it's to create a new coaching program, maybe it's just to kind of tell the story about their life and where they want to go. I've developed a method to help people get started who struggle with beginning to write. Um, it's a really simple method where I help them use their voice to express themselves, and it's all done through the space of connection and asking questions. And it's a joy. I love doing it. My other role, my other hat, is I work for the Alzheimer's Association, Colorado chapter, and I am a senior program manager for them. And what I do for them is really three things. I raise awareness, I talk about prevention, and we really focus on care. And that care can take on the role of support groups for both those with dementia and Alzheimer's, but also for caregivers. And I have a team of volunteers throughout my region and the state who facilitate classes and do awareness talks and do support groups. So we're really on a mission to end Alzheimer's and all forms of dementia, and we're making great headway. Mental health, brain wellness is absolutely at the core of my work. It's associated with storytelling, and it's something that I love to talk about. So I'm looking forward to addressing it today.
Fantastic. Thank you. Wow. So which hat are you wearing today?
I would say that Friday tends to be more Alzheimer's because I was telling you before, my inbox tends to get a little overwhelmed as the week goes on. So I'm just trying to dig myself out of answering emails, getting back to constituents and places that want to have education, volunteer outreach. So I am mostly in Alzheimer's mode today. Yeah.
Okay, great, great. So today being, oh, by the way, happy birthday. Yeah, it was your
Thank
birthday the
you.
other.
It was last
Yeah,
Sunday, but thank you.
yeah,
I'm one of those where I celebrate for the month, so I'll take it.
absolutely. Yeah, you deserve it. Yeah, so happy birthday. I can't sing to save my life today, but we can before the month ends because it's still on. Right. So today we're talking about men's mental health, and there's a lot of stigma surrounding men's mental health. I'm sure you've encountered a couple of people with mental health issues and stuff. So how would you say, with your expertise, how can we beat the stigma surrounding men's mental health particularly?
I mean, Marjorie, I think it really comes down to having just an open dialogue and conversation about it. I know, just speaking from my own experience of managing and maintaining my own strong mental health, and it wavers like everybody else. But I think just being honest and open about it is a start. And I know that for a lot of men, there is a challenge in allowing that vulnerability to come through, to
Mhm.
show um, to them asking for help may be a sign of weakness because it could just be from their upbringing and maybe just their own values and beliefs. But I think that asking for help is probably the bravest thing you can do. And so I think for men too, there is a willingness more so these days to be more open. I think that there was a time where generationally there was still this, you've got to be strong, big boys don't cry, and you've got to be almost like stoic in how you carry yourself. And I think we're
Right.
seeing more and more with whether it's celebrities or people who are influencers, and it's just becoming more and more um, appropriate and I think common for men to show a little bit more of that feminine side, that feminine energy where they can be more open, they can be more conversive. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done, but I think that generationally we're moving in the right direction where I think the younger generations are waking up to um, knowing the tools, knowing the resources that are available for help. So it is something that I'm very focused on just because I do encounter men of all ages when I'm talking about brain health and wellness, or I do story projects with men. Getting
Mhm.
them to open up and talk is not quite as easy as it is with women. I think with women, it's built in. With men, it takes a little bit more coaxing and a little bit more making them feel safe. But boy, once a guy feels safe with you and trusting, and I've experienced it, they will tell you everything and it'll come out. So it is desperately needed for sure.
Yeah, I like what we just said. Once a man has that opportunity and they open up and they will tell you everything. I was reading something just a couple of days and they said sometimes men don't talk face to face, but they talk shoulder to shoulder.
True.
Right. Yeah. How can you explain that?
Well, I think that there's this camaraderie of guys, it's kind of like, going out with the buddies and everyone's kind of, it's an interesting way you said that, shoulder to shoulder. It's more of just like a team, like it's my crew. These are
Right.
my pals, as opposed to being more front facing, like this is a person who can hear me, that can see me, that can provide a safe space for me. Um, and I think sometimes that shoulder to shoulder way of friendship can be like, you got to show up as that, always got to be like the cool guy and like, oh yeah, everything's fine, I'm good. But deep down inside, you're like, I'm not good, but I'm not going to tell these guys because I don't want them to think less of me. So I think that in and of itself can create stigma where the circle of friends that you think value you, do they really take the time to ask you how you're doing and look at you and like turn from
Mhm.
your shoulder and look to you in the face to be that support? And I think again, I think men want that. I think we all want that. We all as humans want to feel seen and heard and valued. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. So
Right.
I think
Exactly.
that I think that for men it's going to take a little bit more effort, but I think having more front-facing conversations is what's needed.
I totally agree because just as again, just going back to what you say earlier on before we got on, is being that curiosity. It's that curiosity. And because when you would, I know some people, sometimes there's someone who's probably listening to you, and probably they have people, they have brothers around them or even colleagues around them. They have people they're managing, people they're leading, people they're giving care to. And they wouldn't be able to, they could see, okay, someone has a problem. How can they approach it without making the person feel offended or making the person feel like, okay, they're going to shut the curtains, hide behind the sofa, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example of this. And I use this reference a lot when it comes to, say you're walking down the street and you see somebody maybe laying on the sidewalk and they look like they're in pain, or they just look like they're just in trouble. There's a good number of people who would just walk right past that person, maybe even step over them because they're in their way. Right.
Yeah.
So there's that category of people. Then there's another category of people who, as they're walking, they'll see the person and just be like, oh, what's that person doing? I'll let somebody else handle it. They'll notice them, but they'll keep walking. It's the person that will stop. And as you said, will ask the question, hey, are you okay? Do you need help? Can I do anything for you? And be there for that person. And unfortunately, I believe still societally, there's not enough of those people that will stop and ask the question. And I think that whether the person's laying on a sidewalk, sitting on a park bench, sitting by themselves at lunch in the school cafeteria, how many times have we noticed those people that you notice them, but do you say anything to them?
Do you say anything to them? Do you do
And
anything?
and it could just be the question. It could literally just be, do you need help? You look like you're in distress. Can I be of service? And not that you need to feel like you're intruding or disrupting anything. It's just out of concern. And that person may just say, I'm okay. I'm just having a bad day. And you just let them know, well, I see you and I'm just sitting over here. If you need anything, if you need to talk to someone, let me know. Right?
Yes,
You
very,
don't
very.
have to put yourself on that. And I think people just, they don't realize how easy that interaction could be by just asking the question, because you could literally save a person's life by doing that small act. And I've heard it time and time again of just that small gesture of curiosity that person was like, wow, they asked me the question that needed to be asked. And it changed the trajectory of their day, their life. So, yeah.
Right, absolutely. I like what you said, especially letting them know, hey, I see you and I'm here should you need to talk.
Mhm.
Just that fact, they know that they are being seen. And
And
someone
they feel it. They can feel from
and they
this person there's a sincerity, right?
sincerity
Not
of
just this,
conversation.
oh, I mean, I think we were talking about this. Like, I felt like you and I are just very similar and just are how aware we are of kind of when we see things that,
Right,
it's not like we're trying to do anything special. My watch is talking to me. We're not trying to be better than most. We're just trying to do right by
do
people,
right.
so
Yes,
do the right thing. And I think doing the right thing could be something as simple as being aware, seeing, and ask the question. Then if they need help, that moves into the next area of attention and listening and really giving that person that space,
right.
so these are things that, unfortunately for men, I think that if we saw a man, we'll just say maybe a little rugged, rough around the edges, looking in distress, but he's kind of intimidating looking, that could
Mhm.
be off-putting for most, to approach him, versus it being, say, like a child or a woman or
Right.
somebody where there's a little bit more of a softer approach to it. But that man is dealing with things just as much as that
Much
teen
as
or that woman
anybody
is.
else.
So
Yeah,
why are they being treated differently than the others? So I think there's a desperate need for that awareness of, when we notice a work colleague who's a male, when we notice a friend who's a male that tries to keep it together, but you just know there's something going on. And that's where the curiosity kicks in, just going, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay with you today? I'm just noting something's a little off, like just that, but
right.
meaning it, so.
Yeah, exactly. I like what you say, meaning it, being authentic, not just asking like, hey, are you okay? And then getting engaged doing something else. That already shows, okay, you're not really paying
You're
attention.
not engaged. Yeah.
You're not engaged. It's like you're just being nosy and just trying to look like you care when you don't. But that being present, that being okay, it can actually even include this, just stopping what you are doing and paying particular attention to this person.
Yeah.
Because
And I
and
think
just
that's the key, Marjorie. I think people they don't want to interrupt themselves. They feel like,
yeah,
I'm doing my thing. I got to get from here to there. Or I'm in the middle of a fun conversation with friends, but I noticed this person over here. It's like, I don't want to disrupt my, my flow or whatever it is that I'm doing. But if you notice that, I just feel like it's like a nudge, like a little, a subtle elbow from God or
yeah,
whatever to say, hey, are you noticing this over here? And it could literally be, hey, friends, I'm I want to go check on this guy. Give me just a sec. And your friends are like, what?
absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
and then you come back and they're like, he's good. He's just, maybe just had a bad breakup and he's just, having some time to himself. But your friends will be like, now you're inspiring them. Be like, wow, that was
yeah,
really nice that you did that. I didn't even see him. Okay. Well, maybe
yeah.
open your perspective a little bit and start noticing. So I think you can set an example for others to be more aware
Also,
and
yeah,
be
to
more
be more
curious.
aware and more curious. And again, just like you're saying, you could actually be that one question, because the person going through the emotion, going through that, sometimes even the person themselves might not be noticing that they are actually going through something.
Sure.
Maybe they, because we live in a very fast-paced world whereby everybody's like, everybody wants to get to point B, point C, and do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. They get
Mhm.
themselves in emotion and they don't realize that they've completely gone off the rail.
Yep.
So that asking that question, being present, and then it brings them back into their frame of mind, and they would be thinking, okay, what did I do? They can start that having that honest conversation with themselves, and then that's when they will realize, okay, something is wrong. I need help.
Yep. Exactly.
Then I think it will go back to now they'll remember, okay, someone noticed me. I was noticed. And then they probably come back looking for this person, say, hey, thank you very much. This is what is going on. Now that
Hmm.
brings the conversation, right? So now about back again to men's mental health. What are the symptoms, the health symptoms for women and men, I believe differ.
Yeah.
How different are they?
I think with men, um, I think there's a biological difference. I think just in terms of how the male and female species process
Mm-hmm.
information. Like I said, I think with men, and so much of it does come from their upbringing where they might see the world a different way than women. And so their interpretation and how they respond to things or actually react to things could be
Mm-hmm.
differently. So I think it would probably be fair to say that most men, when they're triggered by something, react. Now,
Right.
women, I'm not saying women don't react, but women could be a little bit more thoughtful and respond, right? So I think that there could just be some biological differences. I
Mm-hmm.
think that coping mechanisms also play a role in how women, I think, again, societally have a circle of friends. They are a little bit more nurturing. They've got ways of coping. Maybe they're subscribed to a podcast that is, a female influencer that they listen to that can be kind of that influence. For men, it could be sports. It could be like, you know, uh, something that's a little bit more intense. It could be athletics. It could be working out. I mean, there could be a little bit more of an aggressive way to cope. Not saying it's
Mm-hmm.
bad. It's just different in terms of typically how it's done. Um, and I think also just the ability to ask for help. I think that women are programmed in just, again, I think it's just in their mothering instincts to be a nurturer and asking for help.
Right.
Not always the best, but I think it's easier for them than for men. And I think, again, men see that potentially as a sign of weakness because I just think culturally they feel like I've got an image to uphold. I can't be the weakling. I
Right.
don't want people to look at me different. Again, it's all this expectation of others as opposed to I've got something going on and I need to really address it. I think women have a better ability to cope than men in most situations, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because in Africa, especially when like this, it's like there's two children playing in the house. Let's say you have a family gathering and two children are playing, and the little girl, it's a little girl, same age as the little boy, falls down. Everybody will sort of get up to go and pick up this little girl. But if the boy happens to fall down, oh, you have to say, oh no, no, don't look at him. He's going to
He'll get
start
himself up.
he'll get himself up. So it, like you say, it's like kind of ends up being inbuilt in the brain. They end up being conditioned that way,
Yep.
that
That's a great
oh,
example.
yeah, I don't want people to see me like being weak. And but if you're hurting.
For sure.
And again, once we start these conversations with them, it could be a brother, could be a colleague, could be even our bosses sometimes.
Yeah.
So sometimes, because one thing people also need to come and understand, with part of, I believe, understand, to be corrected on this, part of some mental health issues, both for women and men, at workplaces come out of toxic workplaces. And we need to understand that toxic workplaces exist. And the question is, how are we going to deal with it without it affecting us? Because
Yeah.
that's where people get muzzled. People end up getting muzzled, and women are going to probably meet over coffee and going to talk about it, and then they're going to let it out.
Mm-hmm.
The mouth is the ventilation shaft of the heart, so they're going to let it out. But now, for men, they'll be like, oh no, they don't want to talk about it,
Yeah.
and
Keep it all inside.
keep it all inside, and which I think is damaging. So, with your experience, how would you suggest that how to open up and break the stigma that men should also feel comfortable in workplaces to voice
Well,
up and about this?
yeah, I think that, and that's something that I've talked about when I've gone into businesses talking about brain wellness and brain health is that, happy employees mean productive employees. And I think that as a manager, as an owner, as people who have, certain goals that they need to hit, they depend on having a reliable team and staff. And so
Right.
if that work environment is toxic, I think it's on to the manager's responsibility to how do we manage this to create an environment that is focused on team building, focused on communication, focused on problem solving. So I think even just having things like an outlet, like a confidential place for them to go to voice concerns, voice any sort of disruptions in the workplace where they can do it anonymously and not feel like their job's at jeopardy. Because I think a lot of people don't say anything
Right.
for fear of repercussions. So I think
Mm-hmm.
something like that could be useful. I think even just having, and we talked about this, just having a conversation group, and it could be an off hours event. It could be something held maybe it could be someone's home. It could be in a community center where people can come and connect and just learn about each other. Maybe you don't even know what sort of likes and dislikes your coworkers have because you're with them all day and they're just annoying in how they do what they do. What if you actually got to know them and understood maybe
Outdoor.
why they kind of behave the way they do? So I think doing things that are more socially bonding to create more connection within the workplace. And I'm a big proponent of self-advocacy. So I
Mm-hmm.
think having people who, yes, you can look outside for help, but what are you doing for yourself?
For
So,
yourself.
so I would focus on things that they could do as far as daily morning practices to start their day, whether it's meditation and journaling, going for a walk, having a nutritious breakfast, finding ways that set the tone for the rest of your day. So this way you're eliminating you're not bringing toxicity maybe from the home into the workplace because you've done enough prep work for yourself to go in and be again more of kind of a toxic cleanser in the place because you are coming in fresh and connected and happy and because you're doing the work on yourself. So I would say those would be some suggestions.
Yeah. And like, for example, and like another question would be, what about in households? Sometimes people in the same household with their brother or their partner, and they can see that something is actually visibly wrong, something is not right. How do they approach this without them feeling like, oh, you're all over my space and you're being judgmental?
Yeah.
Or yeah, because most of the time, because you may understand this, coaching and a family member or friend is actually one of the most difficult things because you have already too much background information about them. So when you approach something and you're seeing that, okay, something's off, they might feel offended.
For sure. And defend, yeah, they have to defend themselves, and then they become accusatory. Like, who are you to tell me that I'm
Yes.
this way? You know, I think a great way to diffuse that is to approach with just saying, "Hey, Marjorie, I'm just been noticing you just might seem a little off today. Is everything okay?" You know, so a bit more of a softer approach, but like, I'm just noticing a change. Um, it could just be something like, "Hey, I know that you're dealing with a lot right now. Work has been stressful. You know, you're going through some things. I'm here if you just need me to listen. Not here to offer any advice, but just if you need someone to talk to, I'm here." You know, so I think that it could just be in the approach, but not accusing them, like immediately labeling them, saying, "Why are you being so grouchy? Why are you being
And
so angry?"
yes, and
That
automatic
immediately, that,
advice.
because
Yeah.
now you've just labeled them, and they're trying to probably figure out for themselves, you know. How many times have you been approached by someone saying, "Why are you in such a bad mood?" And you're like, "I'm not in a bad mood. What's right?" And
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
you are in a
Oh,
bad mood,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I know sometimes I've gotten that a couple of times, like focused on on doing something. I'm just probably thinking about where I'm going to buy vegetables for dinner.
Right.
And
It
I
could be
just
something totally, yeah.
something totally different. Someone goes, so why are you in such a bad mood? I'm like, no, I'm not.
I
So
get that all the time.
yeah, and
Yeah.
again, that means there's already someone has placed a label on you. And the moment you label someone, you shut them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
it's just
then,
like
and then it turns into a potentially escalated
it's
situation.
escalated, but yeah, into an argument that was just not even needed at all.
Yeah.
Right. So now back to men again. Other than men feeling like they have to be the stoic and being this macho man and stuff, what other barriers? What other barriers are the ones that come in the way of men getting help, just in
You know,
society in general?
I think, there's a stigma that people see about men just being, again, it's all in how they're raised, and just, men have to be strong. And I think that men themselves carry a stigma, so it's not just
Right.
society, but I think it's on themselves. So I think that it has to begin with them looking at themselves in the mirror and being honest and just saying, "I'm having a really rough time right now." And I think it comes back to, so we talked about asking someone the question, "Are
Mhm.
you okay? Is
Right.
there, can I help?" I think that curiosity has to start with themselves. This is something that I do, is when I feel irritable, or if I'm angry, or if I'm sad, I'll stop. And this is part of my morning practice, is do a check-in with myself saying, "Why do I feel this way? What is making me feel
Right.
so sad?" And start to have almost kind of a conversation with myself to understand, why am I tired? Why am I so grouchy? Why am I, and then it becomes, and this turns into an inner dialogue that, again, I just don't think men have been given the training to do that. I don't
Mhm.
think they have, and I know we use IQ and EQ, but just that emotional intelligence to do a temperature check on themselves, and ask the question for them, "What's
And
going on with
right.
me?" So I think that could be one. Um, I also think men, not to place labels, but men don't like to be judged. Men don't like to have people look at them a certain way. It's very much, sometimes about how you present. And I don't care if you're a construction worker, or you're a top executive, or you're, whomever. I think that there is still, again, a presence in how you show up. And so if
Right.
someone sees that as weak, as vulnerable, as not enough, as a male, that's really hard to wrap your head around. So you almost pretend to put armor on to protect yourself, when really underneath, it's like this weight, this pull. So
Wait.
you're doing more damage, I think, by living this false narrative of, "I'm good, I'm fine, nothing to see here." But meanwhile, they're screaming in a corner by themselves, so yeah, I think there's a lot of barriers. I think a lot of it is self-induced, but I think that society could do a better job, again, of just recognizing that it's not male, it's not female, it's human. We are all
Yes.
human.
Exactly. Yeah, and just like you're saying, like it has to start with themselves. Because in as much as I think help is out there, and nowadays even online. I mean, you could be anywhere and you can get a help, because I think nobody is going to really help you if you're not ready and willing to participate on your own rescue mission.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise, because the person has to want it, you've got to want that help as well. Because the danger, I believe, like the risk of failing to ask help, I think, is what leads to a lot of a very big high percentage of suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Because women can talk and say, oh, I feel like this, and today I'm going to off myself, and they go live and they just do those crazy things sometimes,
Right,
or
right.
not the right way. But you see, they voiced it out, but men actualize the act itself without talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's that, the lid is, it's just like a champagne bottle which has been shaken like that, and then just the lid just goes off, and something which is actually not even related to what they're going through is actually what does makes them. Or then you come and try and understand, oh, but they didn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
They didn't have the conversation with themselves. And again, just like you're saying, it's not really just men, it's human. It's human. Like for myself, I'm a very organized person, such that if I wake up in the morning and find that I did leave a mug in the sink and didn't get washed, and it stayed there like another, I'll be thinking, okay, wait. I take a step back and I call myself into a meeting. What is going on? That is usually one of the signs for me. And then I talk to myself. I start looking things around, like, why would I do that? Because I normally wouldn't do that. But that means something is out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Something is out of alignment. So I've got to bring myself back. And just back to what you're saying, it's not really, you have to ask yourself these questions. Why do I feel this way?
Right.
What can I do about it?
So I
And
think that the key for men is self-awareness. Like it has to start with themselves. They have to be aware of their thoughts, their feelings, their actions. Um, and you raised a really good point of they have to want to help themselves. You can have a guy, a father with a big family. He's got a circle of friends. He's got people he works with. So he's got all these extended people who are being affected by his thoughts, his actions, his feelings, and
right,
all of it just over time, everyone recognizes, hey, Joe's got a problem. Joe needs help, and maybe they in their own way offer. Joe has to be honest with himself to be aware of what I'm doing is having a ripple effect, right? And so I've known many people who we just start with just how aware of you of just again asking the question of what's going on with me, because not understanding why your wife is mad at you all the time, why your kids don't listen to you, why work is frustrating, why every time you drive, people are always seemingly finding you to cut you off in traffic. That's not the case. It's like you're in the mindset of being angry and resentful, and that carries with you everywhere you go. And so one of my favorite quotes that I remind people I work with is, we become what we think about. And I think that with men, if they start the day with just doing a check, am I good? Am I feeling healthy? Am I connected? Am I feeling purposeful? How can I show up as the best version of myself? How do I show up for my family today? How do I want to show up as the best employee? That doesn't take a lot of time, but that has to be because you're choosing to do that. So I'm a big person who will say, you've got to advocate for yourself. We all as family can help you. We're here to help, but we can't change you. You can only change you. So, and I think men can be a little stubborn, unfortunately. And I think that's why for men, they reach that tipping point. Suicide rates for men are almost 3 times higher than they are for women, because men reach that tipping point so much quicker because they're not self-aware of what is the things I need to do to help myself.
Right. So, and how can men foster self-care? Self-care for women, we know how to do it. I think it's like something we are almost born with, you know. So our parents to do self-care with us when they're still that in the 9 months in the barn, right?
Right.
So what does self-care look like for men?
I mean, it can be whatever. So for me, self-care has to be in alignment with you. It has to be something that you enjoy doing, something that
Right.
you feel has an impact, even if it's just the slightest thing. So I will give you kind of an example of what my self-care practice is in the morning, and hopefully this could be replicated, but I call it my life savers. And so SAVERS is an acronym. So it starts
Mhm.
with silence. S is silence. So that could be meditation, that could be prayer, but just quiet reflection. Okay. Then the first A is ask. I ask the question, what do I need to accomplish today? How am I feeling today? How can I be healthier today? What can I do to better myself today? So asking the question. So I'll journal as that, and that's actually the last S. So A is ask. V is what is my vision for the day, for the week, for the month, for maybe the next 5 years? Like it's kind of what is my purpose? What am I working towards? Okay. E is exercise. And for me, every morning, my friends know I'm religious about getting out to see the sunrise and going for a long morning walk. To me,
Wow.
it is my spiritual space. It is where I listen to audiobooks. It's where I listen to music. I can walk in silence. It's my way to connect to nature. So E, exercise, is for me what that is. R is reading. So I do audiobooks, but I have regular books that I read. I just find that just stimulating my brain with learning new things, whether it's biographies or self-help books. I've been heavy into
Mhm.
philosophy lately. So reading is a key piece. And then the last S is scribing or journaling. And that could be just brain dumping, that could be doing a to-do list. It could be
Mhm.
just a gratitude list, right? So for me, my life savers, Marjorie, I don't kid about this. Like, I think it literally saved my life because I have had moments where I felt very disconnected and lost. And when I discovered these were all in my control, I had to choose to do these things.
Absolutely.
And that by choosing to do that, it helped me each day, step by step, little by little, to build resilience, to build self-awareness, to build compassion and empathy towards myself and to others. It is literally what I tell people, like start a morning routine and pick one of the savers. Just start with one and then start
Mhm.
building from that. So I would say from my own experience, that would be my recommendation for a self-care regimen because it has to start at the beginning of your day. I just feel
Right.
like each morning is an opportunity to start again. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, I like what you say that all these are within your control. All these are within your control. And I think for everybody, to be honest, because sometimes we give power to the things and situations and circumstances outside of us when we can actually control them. Because these things are going, will come out of something and then something else is going to come up. I think the moment we realize that these things are in our control, you've got the power back.
Yeah,
You've got
for sure.
power back for yourself. Now, let's talk a little bit about your recent workshop about connection, because I think it's very, very, very beneficial. Can you just like in a nutshell, like sort of summarize? I know it's quite a lot, it's an hour long, but I know you can sort of do
Yeah.
some of your speak easy method thing.
So the whole idea of the workshop was to share my secrets to how I do what I do, not only within the speakeasy method work that I do with stories, but also within my Alzheimer's work, to being out in the community. So to me, it comes down to connection. And I think that you ask anyone who is going through a hard time, or you're talking to, I've done story projects with people who've been alcoholics and drug addicts, sex addicts, any sort of addiction. And they all say the same thing, that it's not the drink, it's not the drugs, it's not the sex, it's not the eating that
Mm-hmm.
is the catalyst. It's the lack of connection to something. And so I actually had someone tell me in a story project, he said that sobriety is not the opposite of addiction, it's connection. So when you feel connected to something, there's no need to fill that gap with these other
Mm-hmm.
things. So for me, connection really boils down to that feeling of solidity, this feeling of knowing, I would say confidence in who you are and those that you're around, but it's also just this like this openness to what life can be. You know, the possibilities, but I like to take possibility and potential and put them together and say potentiality of life, right? To me, that's being connected to what all this is about. Why are we here? What am I here to
Right,
do? So
right.
for me, over the years, I have found my two secrets to connection, and there's a bunch. I'm not saying that this is it, but for me, my two secrets for connection are curiosity and attention. And so in the workshop, I wanted to guide people through what those two qualities mean. And we've spent a lot of time on it. And I think curiosity has to start with just almost like that childlike curiosity, like, why is the sky blue? You know, why do birds fly south instead
Yes,
of north? You know, it could be something fun like that, but it could also be very introspective, like, why am I here? What am I here to do? How do I want to be remembered? How do I want to contribute to my community and to my family? What sort of legacy do I want to leave? You know, so these are big questions, right?
right,
So asking the question, to me, questions are the answer. It's not the answers that are important, it's the question. But then the second quality of that attention that you give to that question, that's that silent reflection. It could be just meditating on that question of why am I here? How do I want to be remembered? Like those are things you could really spend time meditating on, journaling your
John.
answer, but then take it maybe a step further and bring someone in and ask them, why are you here? What is your purpose and meaning in life? And then share in this experience of what this question can bring for both of you. Now you both feel this heightened level of knowing and confidence and understanding. So
Right.
that is something for me that when you apply curiosity and give that attention to yourself and to others, and that attention is like listening, not just here, but here,
With the
and
hearts.
letting that
Exactly.
person know that I'm with you, I see you, I feel you, I hear you, I value you, and they blossom, they transform in front of your eyes because they feel seen and heard and valued. And so I talked about there's a philosopher named Simone Weil who she would say attention, the human need for attention is equal to food, water, and shelter as a basic human need. And so
Wow.
I would say that that sense of belonging, that sense of meaning is essential. And so I am making it part of my mission, not only just with Speakeasy, not only with my Alzheimer's work, but I would just say, I want to take that workshop and just spread the word because I do think that societally we are in a curiosity and attention deficit, and I want to fill
Yes.
that hole.
Yeah. I think I do agree with that because people are not curious anymore.
They
And
judge, they immediately place
yes,
judgment and labels,
all
and
this.
you know, they see something on the news and they're immediately like, oh, that's bad. I don't like
Oh,
him, as
yeah.
opposed to what
They
is
don't
this
ask
about?
questions.
Why are
Yes.
they this way? You know, how can I understand this better? You know, um, Ted Lasso said it best, stay curious, not judgmental. Be curious, not
Yes.
judgmental. And that's always been a mantra of mine of just stop judging. It causes so much
Oh, yeah.
stress, you know, black and white, red and blue. You know, I don't care what the differences are. Like, what if we just ask the question, why do you believe what you believe? Why do you feel that
Yeah.
way? You know, not to change minds, but just to understand. And then maybe
Understand.
find commonality of like, hey, you grew up in this town too? Oh, that's wonderful. Now this thing we were fussing about is not a big deal. Like we have connection with each other. And they're like, you know, this is my MAGA friend, or this is my, you know, Jewish friend, even though I'm, you know, Muslim. Like you can say, like, we
Yes.
differ here, but we come together here.
Come together. Absolutely. Yeah. Because, yes, because those are the little things that cause that division and people end up and losing each other, not realizing this we can meet in the middle. It doesn't matter if you
Yeah.
start it. but we can meet in the middle. You can keep your beliefs, but people, like, again, people tend to be so judgmental. They don't ask questions.
Yep.
I ask a ton of questions, even to myself. I
Yeah.
could do something and I would ask myself, why did I do that?
See,
So
that to me is
yeah,
self-awareness, right? That's great.
yeah. And I said, why did I do that? And I would actually sit down and I tell people, I call myself into a meeting a lot in 1 week,
Yeah,
so much. Because I would start and I'd be thinking, why did I do that? Why did I do it this way and not that way?
right.
Because previously I used to have that tendency of thinking that people should do things the way I'm doing. And if they don't do it, oh my God, common sense is not common, or blah, blah, blah. It's not that way. I
Hmm.
ask
Hmm.
questions. I'd like to understand, why did you do it? Because you asking questions, actually, that curiosity then can actually lead you to learning something about yourself and about how you do things.
There's
And then
growth potential, there's the
there's
ability to expand and to open your heart a little bit more and to understand the world better and just quit living in your, tunnel
your own
vision
little,
silo. Yeah.
yeah, in your own little place. It's my way or the highway. You're not getting in here because it's actually that's what actually disconnects you from people, even family members.
Totally.
And then you end up being in that isolation bubble, and then you start facing mental health issues because you're not getting anything in. You just think what you know is what you know, and what you know is what is right. But
Yeah.
if those questions, you can, when I don't know, for some reason I just like questions.
Oh, questions. I mean, to me, I literally could spend hours, I could spend days with people, and I have literally thousands of questions that I could sit and ask them just to get to know them. But it's
Right.
not for me to get to know you, it's for you to get to know yourself. It's for
Yourself,
you
because
to answer in a space of comfort and care and trusting that I find people when they share answers to questions that they're like, did I really say that? Wow, that was pretty insightful. And they're like, I've never I've never been asked that question before. And then they start learning from themselves. Like it's a beautiful thing. And I think that everybody has had the experience of being in conversation with someone and we're like, it's
right,
just flowing and we feel connected and like we could solve all the world's problems. Like it just flows, right? Time kind of stands still or you lose track of time. And then you finish and you're like, God, why weren't we recording that? That was so good, right? Everybody has had those
actually, yes,
situations.
this literally happened to me a couple of weeks back. And I was, it just out of nowhere, having conversation with a couple of people of a dinner, and it went on and on and on. They kept asking me questions, and they were asking questions, and they're like, "Oh, we should do this again," and then ask you those questions. I was like, "We should have recorded it then."
We should have been recording it. I think everybody can relate to that. And that is that connection I'm talking about. It's exactly
Yes,
what that is. So I think everybody has experienced it. So when I talk about curiosity and attention, I'm not talking about it from just this basic standpoint. I'm like, you know this. You've experienced this level of what that
right.
feels like. That energy is not just a one-time thing. Like, what if you brought that
No,
to that person who was laying on the ground in despair, or you took it to your coworker who is troubling, challenging you and just, you don't really get along. What if you brought that connection and made that connection to them
right.
and got into that, just even that small amount of space, or with a loved one, with your spouse, with your kids? But it has to start with yourself, So I think,
Yourself.
again, to kind of get back to with men, they come across as just, I'm so strong. I've got all this, you know, male energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, allow yourself the vulnerability to be honest with yourself and
Honestly,
ask the
yes,
question, give yourself the attention that's needed. Doesn't have to be, it could literally just be, have it be part of your morning where each day you just sit and you ask the question, how am I feeling today? And just
yeah,
sit and just allow that to come and be like, okay, I know what that's about. Don't need to deal with that. I'm going to go to work. I want to focus on this today. Like, you have to want to be better. Again, it's the choice, but I think you
it's a
have to
choice.
put forth the effort. So I implore men, women, I mean, I just think that the more curious we are about ourselves and the more attention we give to ourselves, that love and compassion and empathy to self, It
Yes.
has to start there because you can't give that if you aren't connected to
You don't
yourself.
have a new, yeah. I mean, you can't give what you don't have. Yeah,
Right.
like I always say this as well. Like every day you've got to make a discovery of yourself because there's a new version of you showing up every day. So make an effort to zero in and ask yourself questions and find out because you've learned something along the line. So there's definitely transformation happening in your life.
Yep.
But ask
So
yourself,
I ended my workshop and I end pretty much all my talks the same way. I'm not sure where we are as far as time, but
it's okay,
I
go ahead.
so I like to share this because I went through my own health scare in the last year and a half, two of them that kind of woke me up to my own just my health. And the second one had to do with my brain. And so my own mental health. And so what came to me after it was this realization that when I get up every day, when I get to see the sunrise, that God, universe has given me another chance.
Right.
I have another day. So I give thanks and gratitude to my three C's. I have another chance to make change. I have another chance to make choices to make change. Those are my
Right.
three C's. And so I ask people, what are the changes you want to make in your life? Do you want to be happier? Do you need a better job? Do you need to make more money? Do you need a different environment? What are the changes? And then what are the choices you're going to make that are in your control to work towards those changes because you've been given another chance to do all of it. So
Absolutely.
that's probably a message I would say again to men, like, don't just take each day for granted. Don't just wake up and just be mindless and just, think you have all the time in the world. Like, time is so fragile. And I just feel like how you are choosing to spend that time can make a difference in the changes you want to make.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow, fantastic. So for those who are listening and they'd like to be part of the Speak Easy method, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. There's a couple of ways. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. If you just search up the Speakeasy Method, you could look up my name as well. You probably find it, Gregg with two G's. And you could find me through the Alzheimer's Association as well. I really do encourage people to check out our website, alz.org. If you just need information on brain health, dementia, Alzheimer's, it's an amazing resource. But I love to connect with people. So if people want to reach out to me through social, and just say, hey, saw you on Marjorie's show and would love to have a conversation. I would love to make time.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Gregg. And I believe everybody has enjoyed as much as I've enjoyed. I didn't want this to end, but unfortunately, all good to an end. And make sure to connect, subscribe on the channel, and share this with anyone who feel it is really, really important. And actually, mental health is just not for men particularly, it's for everybody. We cover this for everybody. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon. Definitely, Gregg will be joining us again with nuggets of wisdom. And thank you so much, Gregg, for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you.